Today we will be talking about Sanjo's scale, Quadruspedidius pernicius. Now Sanjo scales belongs to order Hemiptera of class Insecta, so following almost all the characters of hemipterans except a few, especially in females. Now Sanjo scale is a pest of apple and various other relative families like pears, peaches, plums, and it sucks the sap of the plant, sap of the fruit, and finally, it can kill the entire plant if not treated. Here you can see the difference between male insect and female insect. Male insect is a typical insect having thoracic legs, having a pair of antennae, having wings. Whereas female insect do not actually look like an insect. It is covered with various dark grayish scales, and at center there is a bulged structure which is called a nipple. So as you can see, female is aterous and covered with these rounded baxi secretions forming these scales, whereas male having a rounded body and all the typical characteristics of insect. The females typically show vivipary, means they give birth to young ones, nymphs. Nymphs are called crawlers, and these crawlers are yellow in color. They are very tiny, and they wander around the various parts of the leaves, various parts of the plant in a crawling fashion. Hence, they were called crawlers. Let's talk about the distribution. So it was native to China, but was introduced from Japan to San Jose of California, hence got its name. It is found all over the world in the present time, and it typically inhabits the branches, twigs, fruits, leaves, and even the entire tree. In winter, they stay as a dormant stage, and when the spring approaches, they can emerge either male or female. Male are winged and they starts flight to get to the females for their mating, and after mating female shows baby berry, and after a month the first crawlers can be seen. Now, as I explained earlier, the crawlers are the tiny yellow insects which move around randomly before their permanent settlement, and after a few days of settling down they release the waxy covering over their body for the protection from pesticides. Now, there is something a difference between the males and females. In females, these scales are permanent, and in males, the scales are in locomotory motion until they reaches the maturity. We will see the various stages in various diagrams later, but let's talk about its very basic form of its life cycle. Now, these nymphs overwinter during first stage are in stage of diapause, as you can see. They molt twice, once in March, once in May, and they can either give rise to males or females. Males are winged, females are wingless, and females typically shows baby pairy to give rise to these nymphs and can produce 8 to 10 nymphs per day. The egg laying period is over 6 weeks, so calculating as 400 nymphs per favorable host. Now, nymphs are called crawlers, as we explained earlier, and upon settling, these crawlers insert their mouth parts to the host plant and start sucking the sap. Meanwhile, they secrete a baxy material, and this stage will be called white cap stage. We will see the white cap stage in photographs later on. Now, there are 4 generations, uh, typically having some generation overlap. Now, these insects are very prolific, and progeny from one female could be over 30 million in a single season. Now, in this diagram, you can see a typical life cycle. First of all, let's start with this winter. In winter, there is a black cap stage, which is dormant insects. They overwinters. Scales mature through larval and pupal stages as spring approaches, and when the spring finally approaches, some of the insect emerges as males and some of the insects will emerge as females. Females stays under the shields and produce several hundred immatures called crawlers. Now these crawlers insert their mouth parts and start sucking, forming these blemishes on the fruits or on the sap of anything like stems, leaves, Here you can see a typical example of infested apple. These are the reddish or purplish blemishes they are forming. If remains untreated, they can harm the entire plant. Here you can see the infested apples having these spots having these rings outside where the scales settles. Now these are the nymph stages we call yellow crawlers. These are the ones which crawl all over the surroundings till they settle down and start sucking the sap. And the waxy secretion, the white secretion forming these stages which are called white cap stages. Now these can be seen as yellow crawlers which are stick down to the electric tape. And this is the picture of peeled bark of plant. You can see the infestation all over the this part of the plant. Now let's talk about the type of damage. Both adults and nymphs are sucking sap from wood, from leaves of the trees, from fruits, hence reducing vigor and reducing the crop yield. Developing fruits are attacked, leaving grey mottled blemishes that reduced quality. These are these blemishes you can see. Now, this pest also secretes or injects a toxin during sucking, which weakens the tree, reduces its growth, reduces productivity, reduces the net yield. And if the infestation remains unchecked, its population may cause the demolishment of entire tree or of entire group of trees, entire plantation even. Talking about control, there are various methods of chemical, biological, or integrated pest control, but most common one is spraying dormant oil. Also organophosphates and the combination with these dormant oils can be used. Spray of some narrow range oils with diazinon, methylation. Use of pheromone traps or use of other predators can be used. Here you can see this is the dormancy stage and this is the right stage to apply these dormant oil, and you can introduce the predators or other insects in this stage near this summer. So that's all about the Sanjo scale.